Are my farts healthy? Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Ask Dr. David video. Gonna go a little bit off the beaten path today, but this is a question that certainly comes up sometimes in the clinic. And so I thought it would be nice for us to address this. Of course, as always, please subscribe to us on our social media platforms. Hit the notification button. We'd love to have you there. We'd love to get our numbers up. We want to get this out to as many people as possible. Now, farting. Passing gas, breaking wind. The medical term, flatulence. Something we all can get a giggle from, especially the younger that we are. Especially the young boys may make it even funnier than other people, but we know it's something that we all do. Now, we want to be socially acceptable. And of course, that's where the rub comes in because, of course, people don't just typically go ripping one off in the middle of public or where people will hear it or may smell it. But it would be interesting to know if, like, we didn't have that level of social awareness like every other mammal does, and we were just out there passing gas as part of our normal experience. Like, how would our society potentially be any different? Of course, who knows? Now, before I get into this topic, I do have kind of a funny story to tell. So this goes back to my third year of medical school when I was doing my surgery rotation. And an 18-year-old, this is up in Pennsylvania, an 18-year-old came in, a guy who was having symptoms of an appendicitis. And that is always a surgical next step. You don't wait around with it because you don't want it to burst, but he was showing the signs, the symptoms, the location. We bring him back for surgery and the head surgeon around. Though I'm in there holding retractors, you have to like hold the hole open. You have these devices that hold the retractor open, and the surgeon finds the appendix, and it looks totally normal, not at all what we explained. But yet the kid still had what we call an acute abdomen, with which the appendicitis is the most common reason. But we then, of course, had to find out why was the kid so sick and having these symptoms. So the next thing to do is what we call is running the bowel, where they would start at the appendix, but then they would run the whole length of the bowel to see if there's like a tear, an infection, an abscess, something that could cause the problem. So a couple minutes in, the head surgeon or somebody says, "Do you smell it? I think there may be some kind of like intestinal rupture." And I said, guys, I'm not so sure if that's what happened because I had Mexican food last night and I farted. Now, they thought I was joking. They laughed, they went on and spent another 10 minutes still running the bowel. And again, there it is. I'm like, guys, really? I had Mexican food last night. That was me. They still go on and, they need to find it. And then finally, after the third time, we're like, "Was that you again?" I'm like, "Was that you?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." They're like, "We thought you were joking." And I'm like, "No, I'm a really open person. This is what happened. I didn't want this kid to be in surgery for any longer than possible, but just to let you know that was me." And so, of course, we had to make sure that there wasn't anything else going on there, which we actually didn't find out, sewed it up. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I felt so bad. Anesthesia, everybody was there. It was later at night. And so the next day, I'm kind of, I was on call, so I was kind of half awake as I'm walking towards the cafeteria, and the head of the whole surgical department walks by me and says, "Dr. Berger, so I heard what happened in the OR last night." And I'm like, "Oh my God, am I in trouble or something for all that?" And he says, "Trouble?" He's like, "That is the funniest story that we have had around here in years." And just like we were all busting up laughing talking about it. I'm like, "Oh, thank goodness," because I really thought it's obviously not a socially acceptable thing, but you're in the OR, you're standing around, you got to do what you got to do, right? So, anyways, that's my little story. Now, why do we fart? Okay, so we do swallow some air when we eat, when we drink, but most of the gas that we pass comes from the fermentation of our food, mostly of carbohydrates and fibers, or including fibers that don't get fully digested because these fibers are hard to break down. Some don't get broken down at all, but then they get passed to the large intestine where our microbiome, our good bacteria, are located. And that's where the fermentation process happens. As part of fermentation, gas is produced. Now, it's interesting because This is more likely to happen with healthy carbs and fibers. Less likely to happen with high sugary foods, simple carbohydrates, because they're easy to break down and not much is passed along. So this does not mean we should all forego our healthy diets for sugary foods, but this is one of the things that happens from that. Now, some interesting fun facts that I found when I was preparing for this video. So, first of all, it is healthy for a person to pass up to 2 liters of gas per day. So, a 2 liter bottle of soda, imagine that. You're passing that amount of gas if you're healthy, maybe a little bit less, but that's normal. Secondly, the average person farts 15 to 20 times a day. Okay, that's a lot of farting. Multiply that by how many people in the world? A lot of farting. And, humans actually generate 3 times more methane gas than cows do in terms of what we pass. But also of another interesting thing, and I did not know this at all, is that we actually pass more gas when we sleep than when we're awake. Okay, so maybe it's just a slow leak out. We're not aware of it. Doesn't wake the other person up. Maybe we're sleeping. We just don't know about it. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting fact that I came across, and I put the source for that information in the show notes. So now I know that because of the social awkwardness of the situation, people will hold in their farts. But actually, that may not be a healthy thing for people to do. So, holding in gas can increase colonic irritation. It can actually, of course, when you're holding in, make it painful, uncomfortable, for like that bloated feeling, right? Now, it can even irritate hemorrhoids if you have hemorrhoids. And so, yeah, so there can actually be some negative things associated with holding in our wind. Um, why do they now another question is what can affect the smell of our farts? Now, typically it can have relation to the type of food that we eat, and cruciferous vegetables as well as asparagus can make this happen, and it's due to their sulfur content of these types of foods. But there are other health conditions that can make this happen. Lactose intolerance, again, if it's not being broken down in the small intestine through the lactase from our pancreas, passing it along. Other digestive enzyme deficiencies as well. So anything, there's other digestive enzymes besides lactose. Celiac disease can do this as well. Now, taking antibiotics itself can make the smell change of our flatulence because it alters our microbiome. It makes it less diversified, and so it may not have as much of that fermenting process going on. Now, also, constipation may even cause this too, because the longer that feces are sitting along in our rectum, the more it's going to smell as it becomes more putrefied. So, yeah, so that's another thing as well. Now, there are other medical conditions. Bacterial overgrowth, bacterial pathogens can make this happen. It can also, so a very foul smell is occasionally something that you can even see with colon cancer. So while most of it is going on, there really is almost never a problem with just a sign of increased flatulence, or the one does it a lot, or that there's a smell. If there is something more pathological, more dangerous going on, there should always be something else going on. Such as diarrhea, blood in the stools, mucus in the stools, again, the thing from cancer, as I mentioned. So, but there's got to be something else going on, not just the flatulence, to make me think that there's something pathological going on. Now, granted, maybe we don't want to be passing gas as much as we can, and are some things that can help. Now, digestive enzymes, again, especially if a person has a digestive enzyme deficiency, that can make a difference. Eating smaller, more frequent meals, chewing food very well, helping that breaking it down, letting the saliva enzymes get involved much more the more we chew as well. Now, there are medications. So maybe if you're going into a social situation or whatever, you're like, okay, this is not the time where I can be doing it. I'm fine the rest of the time. So simethicone, which is in the brand name Gas-X, what this does is it breaks larger gas bubbles into smaller gas bubbles. So if someone's having cramping during gas from and cramping feelings from that, or if they just want to make, it is easier to expel the gas and a little bit easier to stealth it, if you will, if you're passing small gas bubbles versus large gas bubbles. Now, this medicine itself is also really quite safe. That's all it does is break bigger gas down into smaller gas bubbles. So the bottom line. Farting is actually usually a sign that the intestinal tract is working just fine. And as I said, the only real thing that's of concern if there's some other pathology going on. So As long as you're okay with it, for the situation where you are, I guess we can say that some of this, let it rip. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video today, and thank you for listening. Bye-bye.